What's going on, guys, and welcome to Who to Sign For. Now in this series I'm giving you my recommendations on what players to sign for a specific team in career mode, but before we go on I will say that the signings you'll see aren't designed to be realistic and that the player ratings and potential of the players may vary depending on what database you're using and how they perform for you during the season. Obviously you don't have to follow all the tips, this is really just a set of guidelines to give you a hand if you're stuck for ideas and want some suggestions on what players you could sign for a certain club. This is mainly aimed at those you out there who may be new to the game and just need a little bit of advice, or for those you out there who just want a few recommendations on what players to sign for a team that you may be using in career mode this year. So in today's episode of Who to Sign For, guys, we are going to take a look at Arsenal. Yes, Arsenal, who very recently decided to relieve Unai Emery of his duties as first team manager, and since then have placed Freddie Ljungberg, the Swedish icon, in charge as interim head coach for the time being at the Emirates Stadium. But of course there's a lot of talk about who will be replacing him permanently, and I want to ask you guys today, right off the bat, right away today, a question for you guys today: who should become the next Arsenal manager permanently? Should they stick with Freddie Ljungberg, obviously a club icon? There's talk they'll get Patrick Vieira, another club icon, as Arsenal manager, perhaps even Mikel Arteta, I should say, another former Arsenal player as their manager. There's rumours of Allegri, Pochettino will be a very interesting one, the former Spurs manager, Carlo Ancelotti as well. So lots of talk about who could become next Arsenal manager. So a question for you guys today: who do you think Arsenal should get as their next permanent first team manager? So Arsenal, of course, are a 4.5-star team in the game. They're a Europa League side. It's a really good side, and they started with a budget of around £72.5 million. With wage budget alteration, you get up to around £80 million. The game normally gives you a very generous wage budget to begin with, so you can get up to around £80 million for their starting transfer budget in the first season, and your objectives in the first season are pretty strong with a 4.5-star team, I must admit. You've got to break into the top four and once again qualify for the Champions League via the league, so breaking into the top four in the Premier League, very tough to do in a very competitive division, and also reach the semi-finals of the FA Cup, that's definitely doable. And in the Europa League, you've got to win it, so you've got to win silver in your first season, winning the Europa League and qualify for the Champions League via the league as well. Those are pretty tough aims in your first season with Arsenal with a 4.5-star team. Yes, a decent budget of around £77.5 to £80 million, but either way, those are some tough objectives there. Now, Arsenal in the game were lining up in like a 5-2-2-1-2 or something like that. Not even sure that was the right amount of numbers there for a 10-man formation. But either way, we put a 4-2-3-1 on Arsenal's layout because that's the formation that Freddie Ljungberg has used in his first two games as Arsenal manager. And again, their team is pretty decent. It's a 4.5-star team. The best compliment I could pay Arsenal's team is there's a lot of good young talent here. You know, there's quite a lot of young players that got good potential for the future. You got Guendouzi, you got Lucas Torreira as well, Pepe. I'm really high on their youngsters, Sacco and Maitland-Niles as well. Tierney, who's just coming from Celtic as well. There's a lot of good young talent in this Arsenal team. Reece Nelson, Martinelli, another striker as well. I could go on for a while with Arsenal's amount of young talent. There's a lot of good young talent here. Regardless, it definitely does need improving in the first window if you are going to hit those strong objectives in your first season. Now, they've got 4 players, their deals that come at the end of the year. You got Dani Ceballos, who is, of course, on loan from Real Madrid. He'll be going back to his parent club come the end of the season. Matt Macey, Bola, and also Oluwu as well. I would let all 3 of those youngsters go. And, of course, Ceballos, as we know, is going back to his parent club come the end of the season. But for players on the transfer list of Arsenal, I'd put 6 names on the list. You've got Socrates, Mustafi, Chambers, Macey, Bola, and also Oluwu as well. And the reason why I'd put 3 of those defenders on the transfer list right there, Chambers, Mustafi, and Socrates as well, 3 decent centre-backs, is because of Arsenal in the first season with a strong transfer budget. My recommendation is to improve that defence right from the get-go and make it a much stronger back line. Now, you would have noticed when we went through the Arsenal team, offensively, this is a really good side. They will score a lot of goals in the first season. You got Aubameyang, you got Lacazette, you got Ozil. You know, this is a really, really good offensive team. And for players up top, you're going to score quite a lot of goals in the first season. But defensively, that's the main area of concern with the Gunners. And to be completely honest here, it has been for quite some time. So my recommendation of Arsenal in the first transfer window is improve that back line and bring in a big name centre half straight away. My 2 primary targets will be these 2 players right here, Milan Milan Skriniar of Inter Milan, 24 years old, 86 rated, and Niklas Süle of Bayern Munich. This guy's 23 years old, so 1 year younger than Skriniar, but he is one rating lower at 85. But both of these centre-backs here have 90 potential each, so whichever one you get here, Skriniar 1 year older, but one rating higher, both of which will have 90 potential and can become two of the best centre-backs in the world when they are peaking. As they're both in their early to mid-20s as well, it won't be long before they do hit their full potential too. So they're a step up on all the options you've got at the club right now. You know, Mustafi, Socrates, David Luiz, Holding, Chambers, the list goes on. They're a step up on all of those centre-backs at the Arsenal team right now, and they will cost you the vast majority of your budget. We agreed to deal £70 million for Niklas Süle with Bayern Munich and £75 million with Milan Skriniar, the Slovakian of Inter Milan. You know, it's totally up to you which one you go with here. You know, either will be totally fine. The benefits to Süle are that he's very, very strong. He's got 6'5" for his height as well, so he's also going to be an aerial threat from corners and very good in the air and winning most of your aerial duels. Skriniar, though, he has a 4-star weak foot, medium, high work rate. He's also really strong as well, and they're both pretty comfortable when playing out of the back. And you know, either of which really would be great signings. It's totally up to you. Either Skriniar or Süle, either of which would be really good signings. They've both got the same potential at 90. They're both around the same age, both around the same overall. It's totally up to you, but I would recommend one of the two. I decided to go for Milan Skriniar of Inter, and he did cost us £75 million, an absolutely massive signing. When you look at his defensive stats here, his key stats are defensive awareness, stand tackle, aggression. Those are his top 3 stats. So he's really going to help you defend much, much better in the first season. And he go with a 4-star weak foot, medium high work rates, 85 strength, 82 heading as well, 87 stand tackle, 83 slide tackle. And he's not too bad passing out from the back as well, especially with a 4-star weak foot. Very handy, which means you can play him at left centre back and use his left foot, and he won't really misplace too many passes. I think he's a fantastic signing. So either Skriniar or Süle, either of which will go straight into your first 11. They cost you an absolute fortune, and the vast majority of budget. So on day one, we'd spent pretty much all of our money on one player. But listen, you know the saying, defense wins championships, and Arsenal will score a lot of goals in the first season. There's no denying that. With the attacking players they've got, they'll score goals left, right and centre, but you also need to stop the goals from going in. Skriniar or Süle, either of the two will really help you defend much better in your first season at the Emirates Stadium and give you a much better shot of achieving those very strong objectives from the board, which you've got to do in the first year. So I'd also sell Mustafi. We did put him on a transfer list, and we got a £15 million deal negotiated with Valencia. Now, Mustafi's not bad. He's 79 rated, in his mid to late 20s, and I believe he can also grow 2 ratings as well and reach 81. Now, that's pretty decent, but you're looking for an improvement in quality in the first season, so I'd definitely recommend selling Mustafi myself, and also Callum James as well. James is only 24 years old. It seems like he should be a lot older, Chambers. Obviously, I remember when he came from Southampton to the Emirates Stadium. That was many years ago now, but it shows you how young he still is. 24 years old. He's 75 rating, play right back, centre back, and also holding mid as well. But personally speaking, I'd look to sell him. If you can get around £10 million for him, which is what we got from West Ham, I'd definitely recommend that. Because whilst he might be a squad player and quite young and still grow a few ratings as well, he will never be good enough in the game to become one of your starting centre backs in this team. But also we had a bid from Athletic Bilbao for Kolasinac, our left back, who of course is right now sort of helping Kieran Tierney from Celtic settle into the left back role with Arsenal. But I wouldn't be against selling Kolasinac and buying a new left back instead. As you can see here, we did sell Chambers for I think it was 10.25 million actually to West Ham here as he stays in London. But Kolasinac is 78 rated. He's I think 26 years old, so he's still got a few years left in him, and I believe he grows 2 or 3 ratings as well in career mode this year. But I would still look to sell him in the first season because Tierney's got more potential than Kolasinac. I believe Kieran Tierney's potential is 85, 86 potential, but right now he's 76 overall. We have seen this season in real life with the Gunners. He had a few shaky moments at the Emirates Stadium. I've got no doubt this guy's going to be an absolute class left back in the future, but my personal recommendation will be to keep Tierney as a backup in the first season or perhaps the first 2 seasons, look to blend him in more naturally and pick up a better left back to replace Kolasinac as your first choice starting left back in this Arsenal team for an improvement in quality. Now, my first choice would be Jose Gaya, the Spaniard of Valencia. Unfortunately, we couldn't get him because in the game he'd agreed to deal with Bayer Leverkusen of Germany. But the other 2 recommendations I would have are Alejandro Grimaldo, the Spaniard playing for Benfica right now. He's 23 years old, but already 83 rated, one of the best young left backs in the game. Unfortunately, Benfica are asking for way too much, so I thought, forget it, you can keep him. We'll go after my backup choice, and that was Benjamin Mendy of Manchester City. Now, the French left back, we didn't have a full scout report on the guy, but he is rated at 80 at the start of the game. And because Pep has 3 left back options of similar ability in Mendy, Angelino, and Zinchenko, that means you shouldn't have to pay much more than the Frenchman's valuation. He's valued at £15.5 million. We agreed a deal of £23 million, so about £7.5 to £8 million over what Mendy. Oh, is that right? It's about that. My maths is terrible, guys. Sorry, but it's about £8 million over the valuation. Not that much, to be honest. And at 25 years old, he's 1 year younger than Kolasinac, but he's a couple ratings higher and he's got far more potential. Kolasinac goes to about 80, 81 overall at his peak. Mendy, however, despite being 25 years old, still grows 5 ratings. Despite being in his mid-20s, he still grows 5 ratings in this career mode, and his potential is 85. He's got some great stats. His key stats are crossing 87, so he'll be really good at helping you out on the offensive end, and sprint speed 84 as well. The 2 red flags with Mendy, admittedly, are a low defensive work rate, which is a bit of a concern, I will be honest here, but of course you can adjust those sort of player mentalities in the tactics if you wish to do so, and also the injury prone tag as well. But if you can overlook those red flags, he's 2 ratings higher than Socrates, he has around the same potential of Tierney, and he's 4 ratings higher than the Scot to begin with, despite being just 3 years older as well. So my recommendation would be to sell Kolasinac, bring in either Mendy or Grimaldo, or if you can get him Jose Gaya as well as your first choice in the first couple of seasons, and then gradually ease Tierney in over the course of the first 2 or 3 years. Don't throw Tierney in the deep end. I'd gradually bleed him into the first 11 instead, and buy a better quality first 11 to begin with in the first season to replace Sead Kolasinac. But as for other signings with Arsenal, obviously you spent a lot of money on the centre-back and left-back there in Skriniar and Mendy. I would recommend a new third-choice striker, second or third-choice striker with Arsenal. Now, of course, they've got Aubameyang and Lacazette. One of those two is going to be playing left wing for you in the first season, of course. And, of course, you just signed Martinelli, the young striker. It's only, I think he's 18 years old. Now, this kid's got incredible potential. It's 86 potential in the game. Really, really good. But he starts off with a low overall of around 71 to 72 overall. So my recommendation personally would be to bring in a better backup striker for the bench, and like with Tierney, ease Martinelli in gradually over the course of 2 or 3 years, as opposed to having him involved right from the get-go. My recommendation for a new backup striker with Arsenal with this guy right here, I'm such a big fan of this guy in Karuma, man. He's got some brilliant stats. Donyell Milan of Psv. He is a 77 rated 20-year-old striker. You can get him for around his valuation. You'll be paying around 15 to 16 million pounds to get him, which really isn't that money, especially when you consider the fact that he's going to grow to 86 overall once he peaks. That'll make him one of the best strikers in Europe once he gets there. And again, you can get him for around, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 million, around that sort of fee. We negotiated a deal of £14.5 million, a few million over his current valuation right now. And one of the bonuses to Milan is that his key stats are pace, acceleration and sprint speed. He's got a 4-star skill move rating as well. He's very agile, technically very good with a flair trait, an 81 dribbling, and you might have noticed it, he can also play left wing as well as striker as well. So if you want to revert to playing a 2 up top formation and have Lacazette and Aubameyang as your starting strikers, you can play this guy on the left hand side of midfield instead. So he's a really good option to pick up. I would definitely recommend him again. Martinelli's got amazing potential of around 86, 87. He'll become one of the best strikers in Europe once he starts peaking, but I would recommend Milan as a backup striker for the Arsenal team for an improvement in quality to begin with, and gradually bleed Martinelli in like you'll be doing with Kieran Tierney as well. But for more sales with Arsenal, we had a bid for Granit Xhaka in. I thought this one was really interesting from Lazio. Obviously, Xhaka was club captain at Arsenal, but after the very controversial substitution against, I think it was Crystal Palace at the Emirates Stadium, where he walked off the pitch and the fans were ironically cheering when his name was announced he was getting substituted. He started sarcastically clapping. He told the fans to fuck off. It was a very controversial moment, and I think after he did that, of course, he lost the captaincy, and rightfully so as well, for an incredible show of a lack of discipline there, and totally losing his discipline against his home fans as well. He lost the captaincy. Many fans were calling for his head as well, and since then he's never really been able to recover either. I really feel Xhaka, he can pull it round, but in the game, whilst I didn't put him on the transfer list, I negotiated a deal with Lazio of £27 million for him, and that was a deal I simply could not pass up. £27 million for Xhaka would be an excellent sale, and as we also negotiated a deal here, Frank Lampard, for Socrates of £20.5 million for the Greek centre-half to go to Stamford Bridge. These are the two final sales I had with Arsenal. Xhaka going for £27 million, Socrates going for £20.5 million, so £47.5 million here raised for the Swiss midfielder and the Greek centre-half. Pretty decent sales there. Of course, Xhaka wasn't on the transfer list, but still a decent sale, and Socrates got us a decent amount of money as well. And after those two deals went through, and we combined those sales with the season ticket sales as well, we had a budget remaining of around £47.5 to £48 million, around that regardless, in our transfer budget, and therefore I set about replacing those two players, a new centre-back and a new central midfielder, for this Arsenal team for the first season. Now for centre-backs, I had 5 names on the list, and I decided to go after one of the 3 Premier League talents: Joe Gomez of Liverpool, Christensen of Chelsea, and Nathan Ake, interestingly enough, of Bournemouth as well, all of which are in their early 20s, all of which were 80 overall. And whilst Gomez and Christensen had more potential, I got a deal accepted by Eddie Howe, which I thought was just an absolute steal, of £17.5 million plus a 10% selling clause. That's an absolute bargain for Nathan Ake right there. So whilst Christensen had his 87 potential, Gomez had 88 potential, Nathan Ake admittedly was the oldest and had the lowest potential at just 84. I thought the deal was really, really good, and since he would be a backup in the first season for David Luiz and your new man Skriniar or Saul, I thought it was a really good option to pick up. So I signed Nathan Ake and brought him back to London. Of course, before he joined Bournemouth, he was of course through Chelsea, playing for Chelsea. So I signed Nathan Ake, and the negative to Nathan Ake, admittedly, is that he's not the tallest. He's only 5'11", but his best stat is jumping. It's 86, which means despite the fact he's not the tallest of centre-backs at just 5'11", in fact, traditionally, that's quite small for a centre-back, he's got medium-high work rates, and again, with 86 jumping, he shouldn't lose that many aerial duels despite being under 6 foot. And one of the best things about Nathan Ake is that when he was playing for Chelsea, before Bournemouth signed him, there were of course talks that he would be the successor for the player that now plays for Arsenal, David Luiz, because not just because of the hairstyle, but of course similarly, these players have quite a similar play style in terms of being able to play out from the back and being very comfortable on the ball. So I thought that was really cool there, having Nathan Ake being an understudy for David Luiz, and within 1 to 2 years, he'll take out the Brazilian and become your starting centre-back alongside Skriniar or Saul. So after the signing of Nathan Ake, we had enough money to bring in a new holding midfielder to replace Granit Xhaka with, and I had 5 names on the list here: Wilfred Ndidi and Ruben Neves of 2 Premier League sides. They were the best players at 82 overall and both 22 years old. Julian Weigl of Borussia Dortmund, Mikel Merino of Real Sociedad, and also Dennis Zakaria of Borussia Mönchengladbach as well. All these players are in their early 20s, either 22 or 23. All of these are either 80 or 82 rated, and as you can see, Ndidi and Neves would be the best options for Arsenal to replace Granit Xhaka with, and I managed to negotiate an absolute bargain of a deal with Brendan Rodgers from Leicester City for Wilfred Ndidi. Anyone watching my Sheffield United career mode right now, firstly, thank you very much. You'll know this guy is an absolute beast, and he really is a beast in real life, so I'm such a massive fan of Wilfred Ndidi. And when we negotiated this deal, 27 or perhaps £27.5 million, that was an absolute bargain for the 82 rated 22-year-old defensive midfielder. Not only is he going to be better than Granit Xhaka right from the get-go, he's also got 86 potential as well, making him one of the best holding midfielders in the Premier League once he hits his peak. And he's got the ideal stats for Arsenal as well: 92 stamina, 87 interceptions, 86 stand tackle, 85 aggression, 84 defensive awareness as well, with medium-high work rates. This guy's going to be the one that sits back, wins balls back for you, and offloads them to more creative players. Physically, the guy will never get tired with 92 stamina. He's a good passer of the ball as well. He is the ideal defensive midfielder to replace Granit Xhaka right from the get-go, and he'll slide into your first 11 nicely, right alongside Lucas Torreira. Those two as a defensive midfield partnership would be absolutely superb in the first season. So we signed Ndidi for around £27.5 million, and once we did that, we were basically out of money after signing Ndidi, but there was a little bit left in the budget, so because of that, I thought I'd do this. Recall Henrik Mkhitaryan from Roma, of course the Armenian, formerly of Manchester United and Borussia Dortmund. He's 81 rated, and admittedly 30 years old, so from the first season, he's probably going to decline in rating. But 81 rated, high work rates, 5-star weak foot, 4-star skills. He's more than good enough to at least sit on your bench in your first season to add an improvement in squad depth and first team quality as well. So we recall Mkhitaryan from Roma. Obviously being 30 years old, he doesn't need to be there for game time. It'll cost you around $1 million to recall, but I think personally speaking it's the best thing to do. Not from a realistic standpoint, of course these signings aren't meant to be realistic, but just to improve your squad depth and give your first team a little bit more of an improvement in quality as well. So after recalling Mkhitaryan and signing Wilfred Ndidi, we were basically out of money. There was a tiny bit left, about £2.5 million left, and the last thing I did was sign a new third choice goalkeeper for this side. Obviously Obviously, Matt Masey's out of contract at the end of the season. I'd let him go on a free transfer if you can't sell him. And I would recommend a new third choice goalkeeper because Martinez, their backup goalkeeper, is not too bad at 75 overall, but he's never going to be that good in the future. Whereas Diogo Costa is just 19 years old, 70 rated, and his potential is 83. In the game, I got quite lucky. You might notice that sometimes the potentials decrease when I sign players. Sometimes they go up, sometimes they go down. Costa's his went up to an exciting prospect, but naturally, his potential would be 83, which means that in the first season, whilst he wouldn't even be good enough for the bench, he's 7 years younger than Martinez, and despite being 5 ratings lower, he does have far better potential. He probably won't ever challenge Bernd Leno for the number 1 jersey, but he'll certainly be good enough for the bench as years go by, and for £2.5 million, he'll be worth a lot more than that when he starts peaking. So in the end, we sold 5 players of Arsenal in the summer transfer window for around £88 million. Callum Chambers, Mustafi, Granit Xhaka, Socrates, and who was the other one we sold? Oh, Kolasinac as well. Kolasinac too. So we sold 5 players for, again, around £88 million, getting rid of some of the players that quite frankly don't have the quality here and replacing them with younger players. We signed 6 players for a whopping 161 million pounds, around that regardless. Ake, Costa, Skriniar and Didi, and also Mendy coming in alongside Malen as well. Lots and lots and lots of money spent on those 6 new players, but we improved the first team with 3 of those players going right in the first 11. And again, the defence was the focus. Wilfred Ndidi protecting the back line, which now features Benjamin Mendy at left back and Milan Skriniar at centre back. And for the bench, we had Nathan Ake coming in to play when David Luiz starts getting worse and starts decreasing in rating, which will happen right for the first season as he's now 32 years old. And also Donyell Milan and Diogo Costa as well for an improvement in squad depth with young talent coming through of high potential. So we improved the team really nicely, made it younger and made it better. But the question was, could they deliver with their on-the-pitch objectives of qualifying for the Champions League by finishing in the top 4, winning the Europa League and reaching the semi-finals of the FA Cup? Well, as you can see, as we simulated to the end of the season, as we always do, Arsenal would break into the top 4, just finishing in 4th place, 2 points ahead of Frank Lampard's Chelsea, and a +3 better goal difference record as well. So only just qualifying for the Champions League, but it was still good enough just to secure 4th place finish. They were well behind in the end, their North London rival Spurs, 15 points behind Spurs, and a whopping 31 points behind the eventual league winners Liverpool. But either way, we didn't need to challenge for the title, we just needed to qualify for the Champions League if I finished in top 4, which we did. Arsenal also reached the Carabao Cup final as well, but lost it on penalties. There was almost domestic silverware for Arsenal in the first season, losing to Liverpool on the shootout, but in the FA Cup, I would admit, this was a failure. Manchester United wanted to beat Spurs in the final, Arsenal were knocked out in the quarter-finals with a disappointing home defeat to Nuno's Wolves. So a failure in the domestic cup, succeed in the league objective, but would they win the Europa League? Yes, they would. They beat Inter Milan in the final by a 0-0 and managed to succeed that European objective and have silverware in the cabinet come the end of the first season. And you can see they beat Wolfsburg, the German side, in the semi-finals on their way to picking the trophy up. So in the end, it was 2 out of 3 for Arsenal in the first season. We did fail the FA Cup objective, going 1 round shy of where the board asked us to reach, which was the semi-finals, but we still managed to qualify for the Champions League by finishing in the top 4, finishing in 4th place, and we got silverware too by winning the Europa League. Now, let's take a look at the side to end the episode off as well. You can see in the first season, it got better right through the get-go because of the fact we decided to prioritise bringing in younger players with higher potential to replace the players who right now, they might not have been too old in their mid to late 20s, but players that didn't have a long-term future here at Arsenal and didn't have the quality to be playing for the first team for a succession of seasons. So I must admit, there was a lot of money spent on improving this Arsenal team in the first season, and some of you guys might have questioned some of the signings. You know, why sign Benjamin Mendy when you've got Kieran Tierney that's got higher potential? You know, why sign Milan when you've got Martinelli that's got the same potential? Well, again, this is a very young team with very good potential. First to admit it, the young centre-back we just went past there, Saliba, he's got great potential as well. But the fact is, you need quality now. You need to improve your team right away in the first season because the objectives are really, really strong. Winning the Europa League and also finishing in the top 4, breaking into that top 4, that's going to be tough to do in the first season. You've got to improve the quality of your side now, and that's why I decided to opt for those signings, even though we could have just nurtured the potential and left the team relatively as it was. But, you know, Skriniar coming in, growing 2 ratings in the first season, Mendy coming in, growing 2 ratings in the first season, and Didi grew 2 ratings in the first season as well, increasing his market valuation by, I think it was 30% as well, to £32 million. You know, bringing these players in, you know, they've got great potential either in the mid-80s or in Skriniar's case, 90 potential. Really really, really good. And the team looks younger, the team looks better, it's got more depth to it as well, and an improvement in what is already a good young Arsenal side. Just making those improvements there, making sure the squad's got more depth to it, but better talents as well. I think that's the right way to go with Arsenal in the first season. In particular, you've got to make sure you improve the defence. Don't worry too much about the offensive end. This team will score goals, but defending, that's been their Achilles heel for quite a few years now. If you can bolster up that back line, you'll have a much better chance of achieving those big on-the-pitch objectives. But that was today's episode of Who to Sign For, guys. So a big thank you for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. And if the tips did help you, then please do drop a like. If you're new to the channel, then I do recommend clicking the subscribe button, as I upload FIFA 20 career mode videos every single day. So much love to you guys. Have a fantastic day, and don't forget to comment down below who should become the next Arsenal permanent manager. Let me know in the comment section down below. Have a great day, guys. Much love to you, and I'll see you for the next episode of Who to Sign For very soon.